We're going to go ahead and call the regular meeting to order. I'm going to take roll call. Bernie Ballin,
Here.
Bertha Barraza,
Yeah.
Terrence Davis, here. Sharon Geiser, absent. Randy Harris, absent. Jennifer Higgins is absent. Mike McGraw,
Here.
Julio Martinez,
Here.
Todd Parton,
Here.
Mark Turner,
Here.
Kyle Warsinski,
Here.
Lloyd White.
Here.
I didn't recognize you, Mr. White. Vacant position, which is a school student, is not here, still working on that. And then vacant position, local developer. Is that from Mr. Chambers?
Yeah, that's the vacancy when he resigned.
Okay. So we do have a quorum. Action or request, excuse me. Okay, so let's start with the pledge of allegiance. Mr. Martinez, if you could lead us in the flag salute.
Of course. Hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. So I believe we need, I think, an approval, or are there any adjustments to the proposed agenda?
There are none.
None. So do we move that to approve it? I don't recall, it's been a while. Kyle, do we move
For
that?
the adjustments,
Yeah, or we just, okay, no adjustments. Are there any conflicts of interest or disclosure based upon today's agenda for anyone? No. Mr. Martinez, no?
No.
Okay, so moving on to item number 1, public comment. Any person may address the committee on any matter not on this agenda. But if you wish to speak, please fill out a card. You'll have 3-minute time limit. No sharing or passing notes to another person. State law prohibits committee from discussing or taking actions brought up by our comments. Is there anyone that would like to has public comments? Okay. Moving to action items. Number 2A. So the approval of the minutes dated April 12th, 2017. Everyone have a chance to look at those. Any questions, comments, things that may need to be revised?
Good to me.
Okay. So entertaining any motions for approval?
move to approve.
Second.
So we have Todd first and second Mark. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or noes? Abstain?
I wasn't here either.
So abstain from Mr. McGraw and Mr. White. Okay, item passes. Passes 6-6 and 2 abstentions. Item 2B, appointment of committee secretary position. Okay. So, let's see here. I thought we had a secretary, no, we have a treasurer. So secretary position. Do we have someone in mind for that?
Yeah,
or-
I'd like to make a motion to make Kyle the secretary. He's been acting in capacity anyway, so
Second.
at least for the near term.
So, motion by Mr. McGraw, second by Mr. Ballin. Any other discussion or any concerns, any
Pretty sure
other
he's-
motions?
Nobody's jumping out of their seat to do the jobs.
Sure, anyone else want it?
Any refusals, which you can't do, but any refusals?
Yeah, I'd have to ask to refuse. He'd say no, so.
Okay, so let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Okay, pass 8-0. No, I'm sorry, 9-0. All right, Kyle, all right. Mr. Secretary.
Yes, thank you.
Secretary to the President. All right. Item 2C, So the update projects from city staff. Kyle.
I'll go ahead and give a brief update from what's going on at the City Hall, and then we have Amr Jacker, our Public Works Director and City Engineer, that's going to do a couple the larger infrastructure projects that are on the horizon. So we've asked them to come in today as well. For planning and economic development, we've had a pretty good go of it in the last couple months or so. So the Sonic Burger is moving forward. I continuously give an update on that one. They're the ones that'll probably be building in the near future. So they've gone through their planning application. They got the full entitlement at Planning Commission, and they're moving on to submitting building permit plans. So hopefully that takes a couple months to get those plans approved, and then they'll move on to breaking ground out there. One of the final steps is a map that was approved, which parcelized the 7 acres into different parcels for finance and conveyance. What that means is a master developer can then sell off pieces of that shopping center. So they got that approved, so we should be moving forward on that. I could probably say it since I got an email. We have received another one of the inlines next to the Panera Bread, and I don't want to jinx it, but it hopefully is going to be that Ono Hawaiian barbecue. If you've ever eaten at one of those, they have one at the Plaza in Riverside, and then there's one in Marina Valley. So it's pretty good. And then I haven't received anything else on the inlines over there. So that's one of the shopping centers that's going to move forward. And then we've been meeting.
Kyle, is that on First Street?
Yes.
In Highland Spring?
Yes.
Okay. By the
Next to
CHP station?
CHP?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're excited about that one. That'll be one of the newer shopping centers that's going to be built in the last couple years. And we've been meeting with the properties next to Kohl's as well as across the street from Walmart. It's the same property owner. Nothing definitive on that one, but they are shopping around some different tenants for that, which includes the movie theater and a large fitness studio. So hopefully those come to fruition, and then executive staff has been meeting with the owners of what we're calling the Beaumont Village, and that's out there north of the 60 freeway, south of Oak Valley Parkway. It's about 300 acres. And we've been meeting with them to kind of help them through the process on what they need to do, what kind of team they need to have in place to get through the approval process here at the city. So we've been meeting every couple weeks or so on what they've come up with conceptually and and providing our input on that exhibit. So that's something that hopefully comes forward. Just to get the entitlement on 300 acres, it's going to cost them a sizable amount of money. But they did get a memorandum of understanding approved between themselves and the city council on just some of the framework pieces on what they expect the city to do and what the city council expects the applicant to do. And as part of that memorandum of understanding, they were willing to dedicate around 4 to 5 acres of property for what we're calling our West Side Fire Stations. That will help in terms of the acquisition for the property to then go ahead and start design and hopefully construction of the fire station needed on the western end of town. So that's all I have today. And like I said, Amr is here from our Public Works Department. He's going to give you an update on Potrero Interchange, which is out off the 60 freeway, and the plans for wastewater treatment plant expansion and desalter.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Yeah, my name is Amr Jaker. I'm Director of Public Works for the City of Beaumont. And starting off with Potrero Interchange. The Potrero Interchange is it's a new interchange that'll go in about a mile or so west of 60 freeway and I-10. The 60 in that portion right there is a state highway. So it has there is some left turns on and off to the highway itself. And actually that was one of the reasons it rated so high when we applied for grants and were able to get some federal grants, because there has been a lot of accident. As the traffic volume keeps going up, it's very unsafe to cross that road, especially when people are making left turns, but it's also very unsafe to get on and off of that portion of the highway. So this started about 20 years or so ago. We started applying for grants. We were able to get some demo fund grants I think this was over 10 years ago. Then we got some RCTC grants. All in all, we have 13 million or so in grants. Originally, the project was having the bridge over the highway, and then having off and on ramps. The cost of doing it all together was quite a bit. So the decision was made to phase it. The first phase of it is just a bridge over the 60, and then the second phase would be to put in the off ramps and on ramps. The project was almost ready about a year and a half ago. The environmental work was done. The design work was 95% complete. Most of the right-of-way was acquired. Some of it was left. So when we picked up and started doing some of that work, we've taken it to now, the project is almost 99% done. We have the final submittal to Caltrans for the design. We've redone the environmental. It was over 3 years old, so we had to revalidate the environmental. We got that done. Utility agreements are coming to council this month. Finalize those. We're doing an agreement with the county that's going to the county board next month. And then as far as right-of-way, we've acquired all the right-of-way. We're just recording the last few pieces. So all of that work, when it should get done by the end of this month or so, and then we hope to get into construction by the end of the year or early next year. Now, one of the things is that what we're doing right now is just the phase one. The cost of the phase one, to finish the phase one after we've done the design, is about $20-some million. And we only had 13 million or so in grant funding. So there was a shortage of 8.5 million that needed to be funded. And because he didn't have any funds set aside for that project, property owners within the area have come up and said, well, we'll fund the $8.5 million. So they've done agreements with the city where they will deposit $8.5 million to fund the phase one, which is just the bridge over the freeway or the highway, and then we will reimburse them through future fees collected in that area. So those agreements are in place, and we're moving forward with that phase. But along with that, there's an interim phase, which what it does is it fixes the ramps and off ramps, actually the exits off of the 60, and it adds some auxiliary lanes. And we've just done the redesign, and the cost of that is about 1.7 million. And that allows for people now exiting off of the highway onto Western Knoll Drive and that area. They should be able to get off the main pathway of the traffic and then be able to get off, and then also getting back on, there's like a transition lane there. All of that ties into the main interchange project, but those two projects combined are about $23-24 million. Our cost estimate for construction just for the bridge is about $15 million. The phase two, which is the off-ramps and on-ramps, is only about 60% done. And to finish that, it'll cost about another $1 million or so in design and project management to get that done. Depending on how the economy is, there is a development that's coming in. It's RSI. They are building about 1,000 homes. There's another development that Kyle had just talked about earlier. Depending on how this thing goes, we're expecting that at some point between now and next year or so, we'll have a good idea of when we can start designing the second phase. Now, what's important about second phase also is that once we get the phase one done, it doesn't take away the left turns. So what takes away the left turns is having the phase two completely finished off and having all the off ramps and on ramps done. So the safety issues some of the safety issues will linger, and we can use those as grant applications and get grant applications into the state and the federal government to be able to try to get more money for the phase two, and that's our goal. Our goal is to get the project ready. Now, recently there's been a lot of talk about infrastructure funds at the state level and at the federal level. And having this project shelf ready is a big advantage for us because we still have a 20 million gap to fill after the phase one is done. A good portion of that would come from TUMF. TUMF has set aside over 10 million for the phase two, but we still have to go look for the other 10 million to be able to fund that. So all of that is what's going on. The main issues that we had on getting this project design completed was there were updates to Caltrans standards As I said earlier, the environmental was old, was 3 years old, had to be revalidated. Some of the permits had to be redone, 404 permit, which is a Army Corps of Engineers permit, and there's some state permits that we had to redo. So we've done all of that work. So I think phase one is on track and on schedule to be able to go into bidding phase next 2 or 3 months. And if the bids come in favorable and we have the money, we should be able to award that and move forward early next year with this project. That's basically on Portrero. If you had any questions or if you have any, if not, go on to the sewer.
So the off-ramp or the bridge going over Potrero on the south side, which is where that farmer's market, or what is it, Dowling, or I can't
Yeah.
remember what it's called over there. So that road does not connect to like First Street over there, does it?
No.
It stops there.
Right.
So that would just kind of be for that, just that area on and off once phase two is done.
Well, yes, and then we've very preliminarily had discussions with Caltrans about what their plan is from I-10 to Badlands. What they want to see, how they're going to do this. They recently did that. I don't know if you noticed on 71 between Pomona and 60 and I-10, there used to be left turns and signals there, and Caltrans went there about 3 months ago or so, and they took out all the signals and they put in road barriers and they stopped the traffic from turning there. Now there was traffic issues, but also there was a lot of safety issues. So I think at some point it becomes imperative that they just put barriers in between and just make it a freeway, or at least as close as to the freeway as possible. Because I think Jackrabbits is another example. There's a left turn there that's very dangerous. And a lot of times people try to make that turn, and you just either don't see the car coming, or or the line of sight is not there. At night, at the dusk, it's very hard to see. So I think that we need to have that discussion with them. We've started talking to them and to see what their goal is. But one of the things is that they were waiting for us to finish the phase one and interim phase before they can decide what they will do.
So the access to Dowling, is that Western Knolls Road? To get to the fruit market there?
The Western Knolls is on the north side. This is
Okay.
the south side.
So there's still going to be the access to Dowling's on
Yeah.
the south side and Western Knolls on the north side?
Yes. So with the phase one, yes, that's still.
So the interim phase only deals with Western Knolls, not with Dowling?
But it has improvements to both sides.
Okay.
So there's lanes, auxiliary lane that are added, and there's work done on the shoulder, so the people can pull off and then get back into the lane.
Are we going to shut down the ability to go from Western Knolls over to Dowling straight across both directions of the freeway?
Well, that's the discussions we were having with Caltrans on what they would like to do, because I think at some point, if they get sued often enough, they'll just shut this down. Because that's one of the reasons that they did that on 71. And there was a recent accident, I think it was about 3 weeks ago. There was another bad accident on that intersection. So I think they haven't really given us an indication of what they would like to do. But I think they're considering shutting down completely the ability to make left turns on that.
Then how would you access Dowling's?
Well, the access is still there. You can make a right in and right out.
Right, so you'd have to drive.
You'd have to be coming eastbound on the 60 to
Yeah,
get to Dowling.
so if you lived in Beaumont, you have to drive west for a while.
To Moreno Valley.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, so there isn't a good answer.
Yeah.
Other than figuring out a way to get access from the new warehouse that went in and provide access to 4th Street. I mean, that's something that we need to consider.
I know that eventually there was a plan, if you're familiar with where Icon is, and if you've actually gone to Icon to look at their treadmills and things, there's a cul-de-sac there, and at the end of the cul-de-sac, there's actually a street plan that goes east and west parallel to the freeway that would access the future site where Dowling Orchard is today. Because eventually the orchard will be developed into one of those larger buildings. In fact, Francis owned all of that area that has been built into those 3 buildings, including Icon today. And he unfortunately passed away last year. So that was the only reason that the orchard basically was still in operation, is because Francis wanted it to be in operation while he was still alive. So the family's taken ownership of the orchard, and I know they're continuing to run it, but timing wise, in terms of how long they're gonna operate the orchard or operate the stand if the orchard goes away, is still up in the air. It may not be there in 2 or 3 years from now. And that's gonna be a family decision that they make. But hopefully, if we have access that's eliminated off of the freeway due to Caltrans standards, we can provide an alternate access point near that future street, whether it's just a simple driveway that's paved along the property line of the orchard, hitting that cul-de-sac. At least it'll provide a safe way to get in and out of the orchard versus taking your life into your hands to get a bag of nuts or a couple oranges over there.
The ability to go across the freeway should have been shut down years ago. I mean, every time there's another accident, you're like, why didn't we shut that down?
Yeah, every time.
Right, and then part of the reason I think we got the grants is they're looking to do all these improvements so we can shut that.
One more question on the funding for the bridge. So you get the bridge built, then does the funding also include attaching that to what, First Street or something on the south side?
On the south side, there is not to First Street but to the 4th Street. It's part of it's on the TUMF list of city. When we're back in WRCOG, it's a TUMF project, so we'll have to work with them with WRCOG to get the funding to make that connection. There's also a development that's coming in on the southwest side. That's what size is the warehouse on?
It's 2 buildings, around 2.8 million square feet total.
So if they move forward and they build, they're supposed to extend the 4th Street and then tie the 4th Street to Potrero. So if that happens, then we have a tie-in. And if that happens, then it makes more of a case for us to be able to shut down the left turn, because now there is an access from that way for somebody to come in and get to the farm. Okay, moving on to the sewer. On the wastewater expansion, we have 2 issues, major issues at our plant. One of them is that about 2 or 3 years ago, state mandated that we take additional salts out of our outflow. The water that comes out of the sewer plant is treated and goes into the river. That we take additional salts out of it. To take the salts out, that means we have to basically take water, run it through a system which takes all of that brine, all of the salt out, and then the water that goes down into the river is cleaner than what we are actually what we are putting out there today. The levels are low that we have to treat it. So we basically have to find a treatment system that works, that allows us to reduce the salt level from 330 to from over 400 to 330 parts per billion. So now to do that, we have 2 options. One of them is to just have huge ponds where we put the water out there and then let the water evaporate, and then whatever salt is left, we dispose of it. And the other option is to dispose of the salt into an area that accepts it. And in this case, there's a brine line in San Bernardino that comes from Orange County that allows all of this area to dump salts into the line. The line goes all the way to the Orange County, mixes it with their sewer line, and they retreat it at their treatment plant, and then they're next to the ocean, which is very salty, so they just let the salt go into the ocean. Those were the 2 options facing us. We started looking at some of that, but at the same time, we also had an issue with the plant capacity itself. The plant right now, the way we have it, it's rated at 4 MGD. Even though we can handle more flows, the way the rating works is that we're supposed to have redundant systems available. So if a pump goes down, we should have another pump there, because the sewer never stops; it just keeps coming. So same thing with the treatment on the UV system. and the ponds that we have, and all of the stuff that we have, there has to be redundancy in the system to be able to accommodate failures. And then again, the pumps run a long time, but most pumps last 8, 10 years, and we have to replace them. So it's a constant battle of replacing the pumps, keeping the redundancy, keeping that level of 4 MGD that we have. Now, our actual capacity is a little higher. It's about 4.3, 4.4. That's what we can rate our plant at, but because of previously how we submitted the paperwork, it's rated at 4. One of the requirements of the state is that once you reach 75% of the capacity of your plant, we need to inform them that we've reached their capacity, and then we start the design work to do the upgrades and come up with the plan. And the plan has to be what type of plant it will be, what would be rated at, what's our future connections that are coming in, how we're going to pay for it. Does a rate allow us to sell bonds or borrow money, or do we have cash to build that improvement? So we didn't inform state on time. They sent us a letter asking, giving us the notice that we need to inform them. They also put some very tight deadlines. They gave us some deadlines. They also asked us to do a lot of additional work, monitoring of our flows, monitoring of our infiltration, any water coming in from the rains, to see if there was an impact due to the rain, because we are very close to the capacity. We're at 75%. And then also giving them our outflow, the flow that goes out, to give them all the information that we collect. So we've been doing that. We've been giving them all the information. Along with that, they said, okay, city has to submit the preliminary design of whatever that plant is going to look like and how you will treat the brine by May of this year, to 2017. So we did submit that. The preliminary design was completed and submitted to them on time. The final design is due by the end of the year. And then from that point on, we have deadlines for submitting our finance plan. That means we have to show them what rate structure would it be, how would we collect the money, where would we get the financing, and what that total financing looks like, and what our plan is to do that. And the other part is to get the plant in operation by 2020. A side of that is that we will have recycled water because of that. So the way we're treating water right now, we have the water comes in, it comes into headworks, which the most of the water just comes into one place, where, because sewer is flowing down, so it comes into its gravity flow, comes down at a low point. Our ponds are higher. So first thing we do is we remove large pieces of material in the sewer, any big anything that's it's called grit, mostly any rags or things like that. We remove all of that, and then we pump it up into the ponds. And then the ponds, there's a biological process that allows the water to get clean, and there's a couple other processes that allow the water to get even more cleaner until it gets to a UV system, which is ultraviolet, which kills off all the bacteria or any virus that's there, and then the water is discharged into the stream. What we're doing right now, what we're proposing right now, is a different system. It's a new technology. It's been around it's not that new. It's about 20, 25 years old. It's called MBR. It's membrane bioreactor. So what it is, it's basically a lot of strands, like a spaghetti strands, that have negative pressures. They have holes inside of them, and then air is, and like a vacuum, the water is sucked. And the holes are so small that only water molecules can get in. So all the other larger molecules, all the salts, all the other stuff, all the bacteria that are in there, it doesn't go into the water. Once that water is collected, it goes into another process, which is reverse osmosis, which allows the water to be even more cleaner. Once those two processes are done, we're almost at a drinking water level. It's a very clean water, and we can now use that for irrigation. We can use that injecting back into the basin and being able to restore our basin. So there's a lot of opportunities as part of these two things that we're doing: the salt mitigation and the brine line, and the project expansion will allow us to have recycled water. Right now, our flows are at 3.2 MGD, billion gallons per day. We're required to discharge about 1.8 of that into the river just for environmental purposes. That leaves us about 1.4 mgd of water every day. So that's a lot of water every day that we're just letting that go down into the river that we can reuse for either irrigation would be the one purpose for that. And there's limitations to irrigation because what happens is we can only irrigate during the summer months. And then the water as it's produced has to be stored, and the storage is very expensive, and then being able to distribute it at the right time because, most of the irrigation is done at night. If it's a golf course, you don't water while people are using the golf course. But a lot of our flows come in the daytime, so there has to be a system to be able to do that. But the other option is to take that water and take it to a pond that it can percolate down into the groundwater. So there is other agencies are doing that. There are other direct reuse is another where it's cleaned enough so it's mixed in and it's used as potable water. So there's a lot of options available to us once we get to that level, once we have potable water, or once we have a recycled water available to use. So we are working towards doing that. Put on schedule to get the final design done by the end of the year. We're on schedule to get we just had our connection fee updated. Our connection fee was about $3,100 per unit when we added all the additional costs of doing all these improvements. So every home coming in now has to pay around $5,100 some dollars to connect, which is still we compared it to the other areas and we're in the middle. We're not high, but we still have to redo our user fee, which is the monthly fee that's charged to the public, and that's coming to council in next 3 to 4 months for review and approval. Once that's done, we'll finalize our finance plan. We submit our application to state revolving fund for the loan. So the options that are available, we have about 4 options available when it comes to financing the improvements and getting the funding for that. Actually, there's 5. First is having all cash on hand. We don't have that much cash. It's $100 million worth of improvements. The second is that we get infrastructure or state revolving fund. So the state has a fund that they've established that they give out loans to people that need, or the cities that need projects. And then as those monies are paid back, other projects are funded through that. So that's why it's called the revolving fund. And the other option we have is going to an infrastructure bank. There's an infrastructure bank that we can apply to get loans. And then bonding is another option for us later on down the road to be able to sell bonds and get that money. And then there's also public-private partnership option, which normally is more expensive because it's a private company coming in, building the plant, and the way they make money is through financing it. So they keep the financing cost, and they do the construction. So they try to make the money in the construction, and then they've got the project management. So overall, they have different areas that they hit to make that money. Also, they charge a higher interest rate than like public financing, like bonding or infrastructure. The cheapest one is state revolving fund. But so we have these 4 options available to us down the road. So as we work through the cost estimates and we work through the rates, then we'll finalize our financing plan submitted to the state. Once all that is approved, then we'll move forward with our project. We expect to be bidding this project in about a year from now, just about this time next year. So that's all I have on the sewer plan. If you have any questions on that, I'll be happy to answer.
What's the capacity of people that would serve or expected to serve as far as future growth or current growth?
The current, what we're expanding it is from 4 to 6 mgd. So 6, I believe it's 27,000 or so homes that can be served on a 6 mgd. We're at 15,000 or so right now. So our connections right now are around 15,000 connections. So once we build a 6, we can go up to 27,000. But remember, there's that 75% issue. So when we reach 4.5, we're again at 75. So right now we're at 3.1. We get to 4.5, we have to do the expansion. So one thing we've done is, as we're designing the plant, the plant that we're designing is expandable, and so the next expansion is not that expensive. So we're working towards having the 8 MGD expansion, doubling the size of the plant that we have right now, but not having to pay as much money as we're paying right now to do that, because a lot of the piping work, a lot of the rest of the work will be done already, and so the next expansion will be less expensive than this one. But we're adding we've looked at the last 5 or 6 years, and our average was a little over 300 homes per year is what we were adding. But moving forward, we based our numbers on 500 homes. So, and that's what we've been having right now in the last year, is about 500 homes coming in to the city. So we're averaging 500 homes, so we calculated 500 homes coming in for next 5 years or so. So that's 2,500 units. So from 15 we'll go to 18, so we'll still be fine. It's when we hit the 4.5 is that we have to start planning for the next expansion.
Any other questions from committee? It's quite an education for me.
The only other thing I have is not only does the brine line serve the wastewater treatment plant, but there's also economic development benefits for industries that could come in that we've discussed as staff. Can you explain to the committee how having the brine line available to the city would help assist a business that needs to discharge into it?
That's a good point, because brine line was established. The reason they actually established the brine line was so to be able to bring industry. So a good example would be like a commercial laundry that does a lot of cleaning, and they have this very concentrated outflow from the sewer, and they can't just put it into our plant. They'll spike our plant, and we would have problems. Our plant would just basically stop working, and we would have to come in and start taking actions to fix the problem, because they're spiking our plant with all this stuff that's coming in. So the idea was to be able to have areas. Brine line actually ran through corridors that allow industry to come in and then connect into the brine line. Well, that's available. Once we put the brine line in, wherever the brine line is going, if an industry comes in, they can connect to it. Ukaipa has built a brine line from San Bernardino all the way to their plant, and they in fact have a user further down that they think it will be connecting to their line. So we could do the same thing. We could allow the industry to come in and be able to, and then they can't. They may not be able to put their plant in anywhere and not discharge unless they do this. Even if they do the pre-treatment on site, they still have to dispose of the brine, and this would be an easier place for them to do that.
Okay. Ready to move on to the next item? Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I think Palmer does offer free tours, anybody that needs to go.
And we have a board also.
May have you come to the high school and do some teaching about it. That's good. So moving on to item 2D, sales tax update for the fourth quarter, 2016.
So I'm going to pass these things out. So the fourth quarter 2016 sales tax update, so it's receipts that are received in the first quarter, but for fourth quarter sales, so that's October, November, and December. So those are the months that we like to talk about from the city, because that's when everyone buys everything for Christmas. As you can see from the bar graphs, you have the different types or major business groups identified, and this is comparing fourth quarter of 2016 with fourth quarter of 2015. That's how we review as annually, quarter to quarter. So if you look at just the cash receipts received in those months, the city of Beaumont increased by 3.2%. If you exclude reporting aberrations, which means you exclude double payments or neglected payments, because that sometimes happens. A business will not report in one quarter, so there'll just be a void if you look at cash. But over time, they'll have to double pay the next quarter. And when you adjust, it's called looking at it on an adjusted basis. You adjust out those no payments and double payments. So if you look at the adjusted for those quarters year to year, the city was actually up 5.8%. So that's really good. We see an increase in food and drug stores if you look over on that column. Don't get too excited about that because that's one of those retroactive payments. So there's a couple groups that didn't pay in a prior quarter and then it hit their double payment during this period. So it's skewed to the high side. We did get a couple new dining concepts in, so that definitely increased overall. We also got an increase from the county pool. What that means is different things that occur in Riverside County. The city of Beaumont actually retains a small percent share of what occurs in the county, and things that you buy on Amazon and a lot of online sales are also reported to county pools based on where you live. So it's not as much as if you were to buy local, but it is something worthwhile to know that if you buy something from Amazon and it comes from one of the facilities in Riverside County, it goes to the Riverside County pool. Comparing the city of Beaumont with Riverside County, so we were up 5.8%, county was up 3.1%, and Southern California was at 1.4%. So the city outpaced both Riverside County and Southern California as a whole, so we're excited about that as well. So if anyone has any questions, I may be able to answer them. Some of sales tax reporting is confidential, but we can talk about it when we group the different businesses into these major business groups. But if you look on the back, we have top 15 business types. So we can't talk about department stores, discount department stores, or grocery because we have less than the minimum number of those businesses in the city to talk about. So I think you need to have 5 or more. Otherwise, if we were to discuss those, you can kind of pinpoint how great Walmart is doing or how not good they're doing, because we don't have other comparables, so you'd know exactly what they were doing, and that's confidential. The last thing to note is that 5.8 being adjusted also takes into account the loss of the Beaumont Motorsports. And that was a pretty sizable loss in terms of sales tax revenue when they moved over to banning. These quarters, this 1 year snippet is actually showing that. So 2015, they were selling motorcycles or wave runners. 2016, they were not. So you see a pretty big drop off in terms of their sales tax revenue. Luckily, we were able to add different other businesses like Icon, who sells online as well as consumer goods. If you go to their location, they report sales tax. So that was a good one. And a couple other were able to offset the loss of Beaumont Motorsports going over to banning. So that's kind of why we still grew, even though we lost one of our major sellers of automotive.
Kyle, is this public information that's posted on the website?
That thing right there is, yes. You could share that with your colleagues or anything like that. This is 100% public.
Other questions? Todd, I don't see you excited.
Well, when you look at our performance on sales tax growth over the last several years, it's actually a pretty healthy, continual kind of incline. And, we're performing, we've been steadily outperforming our projections year to year. So hopefully that trend kind of continues. But we do have to be careful because at some point, you'll hit a dip and we'll be subject to that retraction at some point. But overall.
So you are excited, I just don't see it. Okay, that's good. All right, good.
I can't sustain it.
It's his poker face.
Okay, moving on to 2E, the SWOT the SWOT analysis document for review and approval. And this is approval from the committee going into the council?
Yeah, we'll make it a final, and then we'll go to council and do a presentation on the document itself. So, I think everyone's familiar with the SWOT analysis that was performed. We spent many months in meetings going over the different quadrants, so going over the community's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We then took those and created a list of ideas, and the ideas were prioritized by the committee as well. And then we took that list of ideas and we tried to find ideas that offset a weakness with a strength, or took advantage of an opportunity with the strength, or were able to thwart off a threat with either a strength or an opportunity, or vice versa. There was other ways to do it. And those were the impetus of creating the goals and the vision statement that was presented to City Council for approval, and they did approve the goals that were presented, as well as the vision statement for the committee. So we kind of have those in order, and we can move forward. But we wanted to memorialize the work that was performed by the committee in this document. So I'm not going to read through the entire thing word for word, but basically it had what a SWOT analysis was, and that provided our starting point on what was performed. It discussed the different committee members' participation over a series of sessions or workshops that were held at committee meetings. I detailed the first session, which is kind of how we set up the SWOT, where we wanted it community-wide. We didn't want to do a SWOT analysis on one sector of the city, like the downtown or 2nd Street. We wanted to include all of the major stakeholders as well, not just focusing on the city of Beaumont and our revenue or our business growth. We wanted it to be holistic, which included the school district, the hospital, secondary education, all of the gamut. So getting into strengths, I also included the votes. So when we prioritized them, this is how the votes came out once we created the list of bullet points. So you can read through and see what the summary of the city of Beaumont or the community strengths were as we went through the SWOT analysis. Of note was the largest strength was available developable land, and then location, which was region, access to the markets, ports, and that was closely followed by available space for commercial or industrial activity for job growth and for different venues to purchase goods or have services provided. So then we move on to weaknesses. The largest weakness that was identified throughout the analysis was that the city or the community had a lack of a development strategic plan that some of the successful communities have, and that gives staff as well as the businesses an expectation of what the council and the community wants to see in terms of business growth or retail growth, and what sectors everyone should be working to attain. And then business retention attraction program that was identified, but that would also be part of the strategic plan that's created moving forward. Is part of that strategic plan will have a formal business retention, so to keep your current businesses happy, and how to go out and attract new businesses. Opportunities, so these were outside the city's control, so opportunities were external, so we didn't have much control over them, but they're very important to identify, to be able to monitor. So that's opportunities with the growth in healthcare, arts, entertainment industries, and then we also identified a significant opportunity, which was a large gap in demand for some retail and services. And we talked about that when we did our surplus gap. We were looking at the stuff that HDL provides us when we go through sales tax on what major industry groups are people in our city going to a neighboring community to purchase. And we identified those. So those are good opportunity. Once you've identified those, now you know if you need women's apparel because we're losing sales tax dollars to different cities outside, then we need to focus on hopefully gating some retailers for women's apparel, just as an example. Another opportunity was a grid layout in downtown. That's something that's outside our control. We were given that, so might as well use that opportunity to our advantage, is using that squared grid layout for downtown area. And then threats, lastly, are threats. So things that are outside the city's control that we need to be aware of, but we can't necessarily impact ourselves. And that's community, so area-wide resistance to intensification of a downtown redevelopment. So in terms of putting in hotels or mixed use that's going to go above a one-story height or maybe above a two-story height, there was previously opposition or resistance to that, and that's just a threat that's out there. So identifying that now and thinking of ways to overcome that or get past that is important. And then this is another one, which was youth and talent leakage. So we identified that we have really good schools within the area. Our youth are growing up and they're attaining great education at Beaumont Unified or the other schools within the area. But then they're going on to their secondary education, whether that's a trade school or a university, whether it's a 2-year or 4-year college, but not many times are they coming back, or they're not staying here and going to those locations. They're going to those locations and then they find a job or a career elsewhere. So we're losing that youth that we have within the community, as well as the talent when they graduate high school. We're losing them, and that's just a threat. It's outside of our control, but maybe we can identify it now and take some steps over the long term to shore that up. And then lastly was just a simple sheet that had all of them on one square box. And then really a quick summary at the end is how does the analysis affect the city's framework, and what did the SWOT analysis tell us about the city? And that was the image and branding, growth and leadership, the business climate, talent, and then the quality of life that we do have here. So I don't know if I didn't receive any comments over the phone or over the internet on this. So does anyone have any comments or want to make any changes on it?
I had a question.
Mike.
And I apologize because my question is around the fact that I was not at the April meeting. But I noticed in the minutes, when you go back to that there was the SWOT analysis stage 2, creating list of ideas, goals, and decisions. That was included in that meeting. I don't know what the discussion was around that. But I noticed there's nothing of that in the proposed document.
Sure.
I think the proposed document is very comprehensive, what we went over, identifying everything, but it doesn't have that transition. So I don't know, I guess my question is, what is the game plan for that to say, transition from, okay, we've identified to what I think is that piece, that stage 2 that needs to be set, which is creating a vision statement, creating a goal statement, and
Sure.
then we can start working towards.
So I omitted it from this document because typically a company, normally companies do these, cities don't, or government agencies do them infrequently, but we wanted to do one here. I omitted it because this is truly the SWOT analysis, is just going through that exercise of identifying those. We as staff here decided to take it that couple steps further, because I promised we weren't going to just do the work on all those sessions and then come out with this at the end of the day, because this didn't really do much for us. It told us where we were at today, but it didn't give us anything moving forward. So I told you we'd take it a couple steps further, which was to create that list of ideas from these on what we wanted to do, and then take that and roll that into our goals and the mission statement. So if you'd like, I can go ahead and I can add that to this document. I don't have a problem adding the stage 2.
It doesn't have to be part of this document, but I think when we go to council and say, hey, this is what we found, I think it's more impactful to say this is what we found, this is what we're proposing as a vision statement, this is what we're proposing to do going forward. It could be a second document to me, but I think something needs to be included at the final stage when given to council.
Yeah,
That SWOT analysis includes that.
Yeah, we can
that secondary
definitely
stage.
explain how we got, because we actually did present the goals and the vision statement to council and they approved them.
Okay.
So that was done, but I can explain kind of in the staff report of this document the process that we went through between this and going to that council meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And when you do that, if you can add the document that we've already approved to the
Mhm.
agenda package.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, just my comments, I think it's, as Mr. McGraw said, it's very comprehensive and very detailed in terms of that work that was done and then synthesized. So I know you did a lot of this work, Kyle, in putting this together. So I think it looks really good and really shows what the components are that the committee came up with how we can improve the city, or, and what's there for people to kind of look at. This is really nice. Any other comments? So then the goal would be, if approved, this is the final draft that will go to council, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do we need to do that in an action item now? or-
Preferably, yes.
Preferably, okay. So any more questions, comments on the document if we're going to have this as our final? No? Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll take a motion to move the SWOT analysis document for approval from the committee to bring to the city council. So,
I'll make that motion.
motion, Mr. Turner?
Second. You got me.
Oh, second, Mr. McGraw. Okay, and let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, opposed is the word, that's what I was looking for. So 9-0. Mr. Harris, that was a vote for you as well? 10-0?
Sorry I'm late, I have to show a house. That's real estate.
You have to work. That's right. So 10-0 to move the SWOT analysis forward. All right. Good job, team. That took a lot of time, effort, and energy on everyone's part.
Is that a year?
It's been about a year. It's been a little over a year since we've been meeting. We were actually in the front room in there developing it.
First
with the
meeting.
charts. Yeah. So that's, it takes time, but it's good work. So moving to 2F, discussion of duties, responsibility, organization, and structure of committee.
So the only thing I have here is the current vacancies that are on there. And I know we talked about it, but then again, the mayor wasn't here at the last meeting, and now he is a member of the committee. So to get him up to speed on the vacancies, we had a local developer who was from Party Homes, and he was on here, and he chose to resign for personal reasons based on the disclosure of the income. So we all have to fill out just 700 forms that you're familiar with. But because Jeff worked for Party Homes, and Party Homes actually does work in the city, he was gonna have to disclose much more information than anyone else here at the committee. And they decided that just wasn't gonna be doable for them. So that led me to trying to find other developers within the community that would do that. And I have had not much luck reaching out to other developers that I'm familiar with in the community that I've asked to sit on the committee. That they go, well, what happened to Jeff? And I tell them and say, well, do I have to fill out the form? Well, yeah. And then that kind of ends that conversation because they're just not interested as a pub or a private employee to disclose their salaries or their investments in the company or other companies to members of the public. I know we're kind of used to it as public employees, but private people are not. So that's one issue that we've ran into. I'm still trying to reach out to other developers. We've also thought of maybe trying to include Riverside County EDA as a member on the committee and going to council and amending the seat to be not just for a local developer, but to have maybe a county representative. So I've reached out to them. I know they're busy, but hopefully I can get a yes or a no from them and whether they're interested. And lastly, if that doesn't work, maybe reaching out, going public with soliciting applications, much like we did for Finance and Audit Committee, And maybe don't make it someone that's a developer now, maybe someone in the community that was a real estate developer or was a commercial broker that has since retired, or that doesn't work in Beaumont and therefore doesn't have to disclose income on things that occur in Beaumont.
I was gonna make that suggestion. You know, I think Jeff's talent for us, what we were tapping was his knowledge base, which had very little to do with Beaumont. It was
Yeah.
his many years of experience in the business, so I could care less if they work in Beaumont or not. You know, if they're doing all their development, you know, Riverside, but they have that knowledge base that he brought.
Mm-hmm.
I think we would benefit from that. And then that, you know, solves your 700 form issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would make that suggestion for sure to say, look for somebody in the industry in a neighboring community more than who's here, because I think you're gonna run into that all day long.
Inherently, there's a conflict of interest also. If somebody who's actually developing and doing business here within the community, then some things we may talk about at some point, you know, may require that person to recuse themselves or set aside, so you lose that expertise in some of that discussion also.
And or we talked about this before, the wealth of people who are retired who live here and their previous employment. I mean, you'd be surprised who you come across who live here. So that, and I don't know how to reach into that pool, but maybe that's something that's publicized. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll try to publicize it. That's what we did for Finance and Audit Committee, and they got numerous applications from members of the community that wanted to sit on that committee. So I bet you if we work together with our media, and hopefully Julie can help us out in terms of putting out something in the newspaper that says we're trying to solicit applications for this vacancy. The only key is that you need to be a developer that works somewhere else, or preferably someone that worked in the industry for years and retired and has some spare time to spend with us.
Mr. Cooper, who we just put on the finance committee, wasn't he retired in the development?
I'll have to look. I can ask him.
Okay.
And then the only other one is the Beaumont Unified High School student. And what we talked about with, and Terrence is ready to go with that. He just ran into the fact that they ran out of the school year. So they're going to be gearing up for one student or multiple students to work with the committee in the next year. So that should happen when they resume school. And you guys are back in what, August?
August.
Yeah, so it's not that
probably
long.
September, though, till we have that student come, that our first meeting in September.
Sure.
And one of the things that we're looking at, even with our board and having a student member, is having a junior. And we talked about this. That way they can have some consistency over time and learn as they go. And then it broadens really their knowledge base and capacity building and questions and how they interface. So I think that would benefit us.
You know, one thought I had about that is, I know that there's an incentive for students to do something like that because it builds a resume for college. So my thought when this first came up with putting students on any of our committees was that if we could do more than one a year. In other words, if you could do one a semester, so that you at least get two students who are able to add it to their resume. I don't know how that would disrupt.
Okay. How many committees do we have representatives from?
This one, the finance committee, right?
So could you do it as a rotating piece, where a student comes in, spends a semester with us, goes to the finance committee, second student comes in? That would give the student experience across multiple platforms, which would be great for the student. And then, you know, or even swapping, they would be able to compare notes and experience, so they're not, you know, one goes to one goes to the other, and then they swap for the other half. I think that would, you know, benefit both committees, because they would be able to, the students themselves would be able to compare notes and experience as well, so they're not fresh every time. You know, each year we'd start fresh with a new group, but, you know, I know the more experience they can get across that, you know, it would certainly, I think we're a little more informal, I would say, than what the finance and audit committee is or things like that, but, you know, I think that would give you a benefit of that.
Well,
Also, if you wanted continuity, you couldn't, perhaps we could bring on both a junior and a senior. Both, two, onto the committee. I don't know if that's possible, but that way someone would get 2 years, that you'd be cycling them every year. Someone new would come on, but you'd still have the other one who would continue on with some knowledge of what's happening.
Why?
Just another suggestion.
Why cap it at, I mean, my original understanding was that there was a age minimum, but if you're stepping down to juniors, that's not obviously the case. Juniors aren't gonna be 18 years old, so as a rule of thumb.
I wasn't aware about an age minimum.
So my point being is if there's not, why are we even capping it at
Okay,
that?
I see. I see what you're
Because
saying.
again, knowing, I mean, you're obviously very familiar, but the worst year, the hardest year is their junior year when it all matters the most. If we're just taking a talented student, they may be far more interested as a sophomore, or even a freshman. I mean, I hate to say to go young, but that's when they're putting their feelers out, trying to learn what's out there. By the time they hit their junior and senior year, they're pretty focused on what they're doing, and that junior year is rough. I mean, I know it's been a long time, but I know even in my world that was 7 AP classes, and that was the worst. My senior year was a cakewalk compared, but with all the college applications going out, everything that junior year is when that all matters, and I think even if you're going to try to find the best talent for it, I would guess you would find it either before or after that junior year, not taking a junior who's that varied and saying, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go take this on as well. That's a lot to ask.
Yeah. Okay.
Todd, early on when this came up in council, I think I remember you, maybe outside of council, just one-on-one, talking about some reservations you had. Did I remember that? Do you have a problem? Do you see a problem with bringing a student on?
Well, part of it, yeah, I do, because, if we're gonna be getting into some discussion that's gonna be sensitive and is information that really needs to be held and closed by this entity, by this committee, inherently there could be a problem, with sensitive types of information. So that is a concern. I think, if we're going to have a student on the committee, they're going to be an active part of that. I think an older, more mature student would definitely be advisable if we had to do that, if we're going to be part of those deliberations.
I thought we were a public body.
We are, but there may be some times when there's issues that may relate to economic development, to prospects that we may get into discussions on at some point that are subject to closed and executive session.
I see.
Just in my limited experience of having even student representative on the Board of Trustees, is students come in whether they're junior or senior, and it takes them a while to kind of figure things out and really have their voice. And we're working on student voice. But the one student that we have that did it this year, she got involved in some other political groups through the state, through the school board association, and now she's like just fostering. And so now the board has asked her really to chime in on items, not a voting member, but just to give her voice. And so she was there last night, and she's just, oh, well, no, this is what I think. And so then that provides that valuable input, but I don't see that until they're a little bit more mature, if you will. That's just my perspective, just in case, based upon what we've seen with students on the board.
We can look at having, I think, maybe a compromise within Todd's concerns, as well as trying to get people experience on the committee, is to have a seat on them that just would be denoted that they're not a voting member.
I was
So they
going to say
couldn't
that.
vote if we needed to go to an executive or a closed session on some sort of sensitive topic or potential business deal, then they wouldn't be in there because they're not a voting member. But they could easily partake and sit up here and be on the committee, have a seat, just wouldn't be able to vote. Wouldn't be counted as part of the quorum. Just a thought to throw out.
More of a liaison then type seat.
I'm all for that. I agree.
Yeah.
Just because, again, the concern I have is the rotating, you know, you say that if they're in for 6 months or a year, and then you get a new one in, and you have that ramp-up period. In theory, you'd like to think they'll go back and review the film, but that's a lot to do.
You know, one reason I think the suggestion of putting individuals, students on the committee was in response to a group of students who wanted a youth, I forget what it was called,
Youth advisory,
A youth
something like that?
advisory council.
Yeah.
That's right.
and my concern, and I think others on council at that time, was that it was too close to an election period, and we didn't want the students to be used as people knocking on doors or doing flyers, and we just wanted to stay away from that. But I know that Yucaipa has something like that. I know that Beaumont used to have something like that. Are you familiar with that? When Mr. DeForge was, he used to have, maybe you know, Kyle, used to have meetings with students from the high school.
I think I maybe went to one of them. I think they were held here. And they had a group of students that I believe just signed up. It wasn't something that was appointed by the district themselves, but they signed up and they went over concerns within the community. But I don't know if they really acted in any type of advisory capacity to the city council or to the city staff at all.
What is the name of the student on the school board?
Michaela Earl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I got a name of a different student for next year
Okay.
for this committee.
Okay.
But one of the things that I will be doing next year is having a superintendent's student advisory, if you will, where I meet with students to hear student voice, to assist in informing decisions. So maybe they did something like that.
Yeah, I was just thinking if there was a way, that Mr. McGraw brought up, and I believe you too, of getting younger students more involved with what we're doing, so that when they do become a junior and they do come on to the committee, they have some information. Now, the valedictorian, I don't remember her name. What was her name?
Delaney Ho.
Delaney, okay. It was her political group that was reaching out for the Youth Advisory Council.
I see.
And so I know she's very.
You're talking about some sharp kids. I mean,
Yeah,
they-
yeah. So I'm wondering if there's a way to have the school district start with some kind of program like that, that we could then bring them in on occasion to come in and provide feedback from, you know, not be members of the committee, at least sophomores and juniors, or freshmen and sophomores if they want to, but so that they can experience both city council, finance, and economics, and that way they have a better understanding when we're looking for a junior to actually sit on the different committees.
Kind of like a pipeline.
Yes.
And I know that some high schools, I don't know if our high school does it, where they have this ASB leadership group where they start as freshmen, kind of learning the political kind of
Right.
process. And so then that group could go to different things as assignments, if you will.
Correct.
And you just kind of learn the understanding of government policy and all of those things.
Plus, we have, I believe every one of these committees and the council is all on YouTube. So it would give a teaching opportunity to,
Yeah.
you know, to talk about, you know, processes that are going on. So to prepare them, you know, discussion. I don't know, I like the idea of getting a group of students involved. My concern was I thought it should be a school district initiative as opposed to a city initiative, because you start getting into problems with mixing young kids with adults.
And they know
because you're
better, yeah.
on a committee or on council doesn't mean that you're the best adult to be around impressionable kids. So my concern was, I wanted it coming from the school district and not from the city. That's the way I was envisioning. That was my concern, and one reason I was opposed to the youth council.
Which brings me to other things in other districts that they have, where they have students go to board meetings. Some of their teachers require that in terms of learning, but we don't, I would have to find out what we have in place at the high school to build that based upon what they already have in existence. So I think that's good. That's something that we can work on that.
In addition to that, to recognize their work and their involvement, one of the things we can do is put perhaps a category of you have invested so many hours providing feedback to committees in the community, and for that work and effort, here's a certificate of recognition for that, to put in your portfolio. And that's something that they can have when they're applying to four-year colleges.
And the thing I like about the non-voting member is you can have more rotation that way. You don't have to worry about someone, especially if you do get a junior that tends to be a real heavy load. If they have to pull back and someone else has to come in, they're advisory, so they don't have to worry about their vote. Oh, they have to get caught up in the issues. They're not well grounded in the issue. You guys are just there to kind of give us feedback and take that feedback. And I think that gives flexibility.
Who they would have to, fill those positions, as you say, and rotate from that council, so that way, as they got to the meetings here, they would be able to then go back to their meeting at the school level. Keep everybody, this is what we talked about, this is what mattered, summarize in 5 minutes. Same thing with the finance audit committee, summarizing that, so that those students that are sitting in that group over the years would continue to be at least generally up to date with what's going on, so then when they were nominated, okay, to come in and sit on the board here, they would be getting those reports back from that whoever's representing here.
I'm getting a good visual on how we can connect that interconnectedness. Okay, so let me work on that. And, let's vote on that input.
Thank you for updating me on the vacancies. I do like how aggressive we were with finance. Now we are able to get so many qualified applicants. If we can do that here, I think that'd be good.
I may want to put it on social media, next door, multi, and social media that could help assist in that also. I know the PD got on next door, I just heard that the other day, and that's a great thing because it informs the community of all the important information, and so that may be an example.
The city is too.
Yeah,
Ashley.
Right.
Ashley's,
Yes.
just added access, or as a city
Yeah, I
representative.
think it's obvious, right?
So she has the authority
Yeah, so we can use that.
to put that stuff out.
So Kyle, what did we decide on the title local developer? Did we say that we were going to,
I think we should go to council now and have that.
I'm trying to, that was my
Yeah,
question.
I think we should have that amended immediately to just
Try to
say
get that.
local developer experience, not a necessarily current local developer. Because you'll spin your wheels for months trying to find somebody who will sign that 700 form.
Yeah, how it's written right now, it just says local developer representative. That doesn't necessarily mean that, to me, it doesn't mean they have to be a developer that's active in Beaumont. I don't know how, what do you think, Councilmember Martinez?
Well, on the word local,
Current or former,
I think we can interpret it how,
that's what my question was. I think we can interpret it that way, don't you think?
and if you're not comfortable with that, we can take it back to council and just get their guidance on how to change it. But I would interpret it as whether it's someone that's working today or someone that's local that was a developer would be one and the same.
Yeah, and it does,
And local to me is the Inland Empire, not necessarily Beaumont.
right,
Yeah,
that's what I,
They happen to have a ton of experience in Temecula and Menifee. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
You know.
only thing is if you want to use the retired angle, then it doesn't quite go with that.
What do you mean by that?
Well, was it White that brought up the possibility of someone that might have been in the industry but's retired now?
But that would,
No.
a current or former and from, with experience in the area.
Former.
To me,
That's right.
to
Yeah, I
local
mean, if we
developers,
want,
current or
here, if
former
that's the way
local
we
developer.
agree, then
That's kind of how I interpret, but that's why I say if we need to make it, clarify it in council, but to me, I think that's how it should be, is current or former with area experience.
What about local developer or retired developer living in Beaumont?
Okay.
So you get both. Because as we talked about, the talent pool at the 55 plus
Yeah.
communities for developers.
It's massive.
Right.
And most of them did not develop here in Beaumont, but they would have both the experience as well as the personal investment.
Right.
Now, why would they have to live in Beaumont?
So that's the student.
So that you don't have to change.
Okay, got it.
But I think, again, I think if you have someone who's retired, you know, if they're actively developing in the Inland Empire, I agree that would be a good, very strong benefit. But if we also find someone that's equally retired in this area, they have some investment. And we'll still get that developer expertise that Mr. Chambers is providing.
Yeah, sorry to say that,
Yeah.
So we can add all the categories that could be considered
Yeah,
are.
we'll do that on the application that we send out, or the narrative which we're asking for people to apply under. We'll list the different gamuts of what would be qualified.
Have you asked Cheryl Thompson?
I have, but I don't know if I've asked her or not. I mean, they don't, she may have a concern on filling it out, because they're still actively selling lots, but they only have a certain amount of lots to sell, and
But if you're, I've learned this firsthand, but if your company is doing business in the city, as long as you don't have a ton of investments in the actual company, which, for example, in my case, I don't, the company I work for. All I have to put on my 700 is that I'm employed by this company, and my salary range is in 10 to 100,000 or 100,000.
Yeah.
There's no detail, because I think Mr. Chambers and Mr. Turner and folks like that probably all have ownership in the company that they, you know, some.
I believe so.
Company stock, that kind of stuff. But if you found someone who was not in that leadership role, they might have less concern about just saying, hey, I work for Argent and I make this range of money.
I'll give her a call.
But just an idea.
Okay, so the other discussion that we briefly talked about, I think 2 months ago, was responsibilities to, if we're gonna have a quorum, people being here, timelines. And I don't know if we had this conversation about going, I don't like to use that term, not meeting in the summertime, but I don't know if that developed, so I know.
I think we had a brief discussion on maybe having a summer schedule or not. I know that a couple people were missing today because of obviously summer, so they're out. Our next meeting is slated for July the 12th. I'm not quite sure if everyone is available or not. I know that we do have people that are affiliated or work for schools, and that's kind of like your month off.
What's that?
Maybe not you, but
Oh, Mr. Martinez. Oh, sorry.
so I'm free. I'll be here on July 12th, whether we have the committee meeting or not. But if we'd like, we could take a vote to not have that meeting in terms of a summer schedule. Or
I think the bigger concern is the fact that we're struggling to make quorum every month, and it's not known. I mean, we're coming in and saying, hey, who's going to be here today? You know, certainly if we have a month like that, hey, a bunch of people who've got vacation scheduled, I don't have any opposition to saying, hey, we all have those lives. Let's just go ahead and cancel that month, or, you know, postpone 1 month. But if you're talking about 1 or maybe 2 months, you know, we meet once a month, and it's very frustrating for me, personally, you know, that we can't say, hey, from 4 to 6, just block it out. Don't take an appointment. It's once a month. We know the dates. You know the date all year long. Mark your calendar off and be here.
yeah,
You know, I mean, I know you have several meetings with the city, and Julio does, obviously, you know, but most of us are in private industry. We're not meeting, you know, with the city, other things over and over and over again. Make the time for the 1 month. If you don't want to make the time, resign your position and let's put somebody else in place.
I agree with your sentiments. July though, July council's going dark on the first meeting. And we found because August, school starts back in August, pretty much vacations start to wind up by then.
Yeah.
But my question to you, because I have noticed that the finance committee doesn't seem to have, it's a smaller group, but it doesn't seem to have that problem with the attendance. I'm wondering do you have the right day and time for this?
Well, I actually, my opinion of it is the finance committee was people who applied for the position,
Yes.
as opposed to people who were saying, okay, we need somebody from this industry, will you be here? I'm gonna use you as an example, and please don't think, but we
That's
said
fine.
chamber,
Yeah.
so chamber representative. You know, Bertha, we need somebody from the school, she's a school champ. You know, I'm one of the few that was, okay, we need somebody from, you know, the city area. I think that's part of the issue is the people wanna be here, and I wanna be here, that's why I spend the time to do it. I think it's important, I think it makes a bigger difference, it's why I didn't apply for the other stuff. I mean, I'm a banker of 20-something years. You know, finance and audit committees right down my pipeline, but I actually think this makes a bigger deal for the city 10 years from now than that committee does. So that's why I'm here. So that being said, it gets very frustrating when last month we don't have a quorum, and I know we had some seat changes that made that because Jeff's seat still exists, and so we need that for the quorum and things like that, but I just, if the time needs to change, if it needs to be that, whatever that is, but I think something needs to get done, because the last 6 months, we have been by the skin of our teeth if we've had a quorum, other than the 1 month I missed. I noticed I was the only one, everybody was here, but.
Yeah, and there was, I mean, we start at 4, so we could, there was 10 of us here at one point in time. Mark has to always leave early, but he's able to get here at 4, and I think that's kind of why we started earlier in,
Well, I know
earlier in
deal
the
for
evening.
Jeff was a big deal because he was going back to San Clemente, so I know that was a piece for him to be early. For me, I mean, I can, whatever you guys want me.
Yeah.
I had to say this, that last year when we started, we had agreed on Thursdays, and that worked perfect for me because I teach on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock. And when we switch back to Wednesdays, my schedule gets set a year prior. So if we change it today, I already scheduled, in fact, I lost one of my classes because I changed my schedule to free Wednesdays.
Okay.
So that would be very complicated for me. And so these are the kind of things that, you know, coming into the meeting, I plan for Thursdays, and then when that switched,
Yeah, we switched it about 2
Yeah.
or 3 months in.
Yes.
And then you weren't able to, because you had to go to work.
right, I had to go to
So-
work also, and then I also I couldn't secure someone to be here, which is a dean that comes from the San Jacinto campus.
Okay.
So that kind of,
Well, I mean,
It's
we
complicated.
have most everybody here today, except for Jennifer, which we know was vacation.
Yeah, and
I
then,
don't know why Sharon's not here. She's been to one meeting since she's been the treasurer. So I don't know why she's not able to make them every time. You know, so I mean, we have 9, March is 10 of the 12 people, that is obviously then we have the vacant position. So, I mean, if this works, it seems to work for everybody, especially if you've gotten that.
I just lost my class last week, so
I
please
mean,
don't
I
do
don't have
that.
a problem with the time. I just think, to me, we need to put something in place that holds us accountable going forward. That if you're not making it, if you're consistently not here, then we need to replace the position. Because it's frustrating, and as you said, you've made the changes, so it's good.
Or
going forward.
perhaps if there's another time, Wednesdays are clear. If we need to come
Right.
in here, I don't know about everybody
Yeah,
else.
until earlier or later. or
I'm okay, because I don't have a class, so we can talk about it. And maybe it doesn't work for somebody else, and I'm open to that. I'm open
I
to
think we're
discussion.
good going forward. The timeframe's good. I think last month was just a little, what we talked about. I think if people are gonna miss, they just need to have the courtesy to either know you're gonna miss and inform the committee so that those that are planning on being here, if we know we're not gonna have a quorum, then.
Well, twofold. I
That's-
say one, yes, because we could have, if we knew enough, we would have just postponed the meeting, which would have been great. But secondly, I think we need to, it can't be missing 4 or 5 times a year. I mean, it's too much,
Is there anything, there's nothing in place that says?
we went to the council for something like that, and basically, the council made it very clear to, at least me, when I was doing that presentation, that if we have members that are habitually missing meetings, the committee needs to handle that amongst ourselves. So we need to ask that person to leave, and we need to find someone to fill that. They didn't want to be the judge and the jury up at the council dais to figure out who needs to be kicked off, when and how. and I don't blame them for that.
I agree with that.
So,
I mean, I think
I think we take care of it here. If someone doesn't come 4 meetings in a row and doesn't let us know what's going on, then we need to have them replaced. The only trick to that is we have, and I don't wanna, I'll just say it. We have the treasurer on there, which is, the treasurer is the treasurer. We can't replace that person with another treasurer because there isn't another treasurer. Same way with the
I
2
guess-
council members.
I guess my point with that is, if she just has no intention of being here, then I would rather go to the council and ask for a citizen that wants to be here and do something,
Yeah.
rather than have that position be assigned, because, again, 5 months, 1 appearance.
Well, and, you know, that's, I agree with you, and I have a comment on that. First of all, I don't think the council has a problem with you know, rubber stamping your process. So if the committee says, we're gonna say 4 absences, or 2, or 3, or whatever, and you need to come and change the bylaws or the rules of the committee, I think the council would be more than happy to weigh in on that. I think that the treasurer we had before set a bar as much that I don't think very many treasurers are going to reach to. And I don't think, she is also on the finance committee, which I think makes perfect sense. I don't know that the treasurer needs to be on the economic development committee. But before you even brought that up, I didn't even think about that, is replacing the treasurer with a citizen. But I was thinking, what about adding 1 more citizen, or structuring it in a way that we get more of the people like you said, and like you, that want to be here because it's their civic duty. And that, you know, I've always been racking my brain why one committee has no problem and the other one doesn't. And I think you opened my eyes to that. But we could always restructure it, either replace the treasurer with a citizen, and our treasurer is always a citizen, has to be by law. So they could apply to be on the committee if they wanted to, but take away that seat and maybe reevaluate all the other stakeholders that you have, and maybe you could change the makeup of the committee to make it a little bit heavier on citizens, and you have less of a forum issue going forward. I personally, you guys do this on the first Wednesdays, right? Second Wednesday, which is what I have at RCTC and LEAC, so you know, I'm already taking half a day off work on the first part of the day, and then to get here at 4, I'm working like a 3-hour day at work, which I deal with and I can deal with. But that's why I'm wondering whether or not you guys have the right day. It sounds to me like you do. I think the issue is more, do you have the right makeup of a committee?
I think there's gotta be an attendance policy that says if you miss more than 3, we report that to council, that person's removed for council to reappoint. And so we ought to go through a process where there's, you know, we ought to chair on a call for an excuse or unexcused, you know.
I mean,
processes there.
3 in what time period?
Within the year.
I mean, I even think that's generous. I think if you're missing 2 out of 12 is more than enough. I mean, that's, you know, 17%, 18% of the meetings you know what I mean?
Yeah, so if they're 2 unexcused, if they're 2
Two
unexcused.
unexcused, without, if there's extenuating circumstances, would always, you know, somebody got very ill or had a family emergency or whatever, bring that to us, we certainly would waive that for that scenario.
So even if you had a vacation planned a year out, as long as it's the ones that we don't know about that are hurting us.
But I guess even that, right, to me, that the 2 will give you, hey, you were sick and you took vacation.
Yeah.
You know, that you're missing 2 a year and we're okay with that. If there's something beyond that, that means you're ignoring that, hey, we have this, and you're scheduling your life over the top of it.
Right.
It doesn't matter to that person, and therefore it's, you know, that's the concern to me. So, I mean, it's exactly that. I don't schedule things, you know, if we're gonna take a vacation and we're gonna do this for the summer and we're going camping, it's the 3rd week or the 4th week of the month, so that I can be here. I'm scheduling my life to make sure that this week is available for me. You know, and I know that's not I mean, I've missed a meeting here and there too, but, you know, that's the point. It shouldn't be excessive like that. So, I mean, my proposal would be 2 meetings a year in a calendar year. If it's more than 2 in a calendar year without some, you know, extenuating circumstance that we agree, hey, yeah, we value this person, we want them, then I think we need to be asking the person to move on.
But also let's consider that some people only work 10 or 9 months a year because of the school system. Like For example, this year is very specific, very rare for me. I'm actually working 12 months, but normally I will be off either June or July. Like last year, I was off in July. I live in Riverside, so I will have to drive over here. So, yeah. I don't know. I don't know about everybody else, but so are we meeting in summer?
I would weigh in that July could be a dark month, just because that does give more flexibility in planning vacations.
Yeah, and I certainly have no argument to that.
If the council's dark anyways, and hopefully that'll be tradition. I do want to stress the importance of an excused, unexcused policy. It needs to be, because I don't believe we even have an excused or unexcused policy at the council level. We just have a designation of whether that absence was excused or unexcused. So I think if you could bring back something with an excused, unexcused policy, that we could get to council along with, I think we asked Sharon whether she even wants to be on the committee, and if she doesn't want to be, I don't think the treasurer should be a required position on the economic development committee.
Maybe it's not a matter that she doesn't want to be in the committee, maybe she just, I don't know, overcommitted.
Right, and that's what I'm thinking too.
I mean, her whole presentation was that she's retired and has all the time in the world to help out, and then, to be treasurer,
Yeah.
and then she's not here, so.
I'll put something together. I'll also reach out to Sharon and see what's going on there. And if it is clear that there's just not interest or the timing conflicts, then we can just move on at council with
I'd like to have
another
somebody
seat
who wants to
designation.
be here, yeah.
Exactly.
You would have to bring it to council to reorganize the committee without
Yes.
the treasurer.
Yes. Same way with adding another position, whether the treasurer stays or not, adding another position, we may want to do that, a community member. And then we'll put together something for the excused, unexcused policy, as well as whether we want to go with 2 misses or 3 misses within a year or so. I think maybe start out at 3 and see how close people are getting to that.
2 misses with July being dark would be good.
Yeah.
I think-
Yeah,
I
and
think
also
I
have the
think
policy
if
that
we
we're
turn
dark.
July off and go 2 misses, I mean, that's, you get 20, if you
Yeah.
miss twice, you're missing 20% of the meetings to begin with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know.
that should be fair.
So from my perspective, there's a couple things. First, I think with Bernie is, if you're not going to be here, then there should be some type of notification, to whether that's Kyle to say, hey, I'm not going to be here for whatever reason. That way, if we're not going to have quorum, everyone knows. But from my personal standpoint is, there are going to be times where I'm not able to make it based upon what's going on, but mine is always associated around work. Because when school is in session, I'm at work. And if I'm not at work here physically, I'm somewhere else because I have to be there. But I will always notify those things. But one of the things, my involvement comes from being in the position that I'm in. And so I understand that. But it also being a part of this, I'm committed to this because I'm learning and I try to give input based upon the perspective of coming from the school district. So I value that. And so I think there's a difference between people being a part of something because they value it and they're committed to it versus something coming up and they have really no control over.
I've always kind of had an opinion about this because the positions are identified, as we said, chamber, school, city council, how these positions were identified in the first place. And I know originally we had people that would be here in place of, Mark, second meeting, wasn't able to make it, somebody else come. I'm actually, I believe that's a good thing to me. I know we can't have that be a voting thing. But to me, I guess from an absence, if you had a work conflict, if there was a way to have a representative be here and at least weigh in and can't vote, I wouldn't consider that, personally to me, that doesn't seem like an absence, you know what I mean? I think that would be okay. We make no policy, all we do is make suggestions to go to council. At the end of the day, we don't have enough teeth to say, hey, we're spending money or doing something, we're giving a suggestion. So I know that can't be a voting member, but to me, I would be perfectly okay with that being, okay. Certainly, if you're missing 6 meetings and you have a representative 6 times, we've got the wrong person here.
Right.
But, if you have a couple meetings and you can't make because of school, but a different person comes in that place, or, somebody else from chamber, I'd be okay with that, and that person just wouldn't be able to vote, but at least one, you'd be getting the information on what happened. They would still be able to give your perspective
Input from
as a
the
chamber
field.
member, as a
Yeah.
school board
Sounds
member.
good.
No, that's good.
I mean, obviously, I don't have that, but I can send my wife, but.
There you go.
But, you know, I mean.
That's good.
From that perspective, to me, we're at least continuing the process without, and having that expertise, if that's the way this is built. If it's not gonna be built based on school board, chamber, and we're gonna say, hey, we just want the best talent, then we need to reevaluate the positions and open it up to an application process. And just bring the best talent in, but then that becomes a different, then everybody's making a commitment to be here.
Well, how many committee members on hand do we have in this committee?
We currently have 13 seats plus the student.
But how many can be?
It's,
in one?
council will put together from staff recommendation, the type of committee that it is. We can change it. And council, I think the direction council's trying to give to both committees, you tell us what you want. And you come back to us and say this. Now, the issue that you just raised about the stand-in, I thought we already addressed that in council. I thought that came to council, and we said we were good with that, and that was a good idea.
We did. I think what we're talking about, or at least what Mike was making the point on, was that if you, as it related to the excused or unexcused policy, so if you send an alternate in your place, that is not considered an absence in terms of one of those 2 or 3 misses.
Right.
And I think is that the point you were
I
trying
would
to?
be okay with that, yes.
So that way, if you send someone in your place,
I know the person can't vote because they haven't done the background Brown Act
And that'll-
to be a voting participant for that, but they can certainly sit in here and give that opinion that, you know, you're sending them, you're trusting them to represent the school, you know, the district for that, or you're trusting to represent what chamber's beliefs and thoughts are.
That makes
Then
sense.
then I'm okay with that. For those that are in certain industry, you know, I mean, you know,
I think
obviously
it,
we have labor.
I think it makes sense, especially when we have the superintendent of the district and we have the CEO of the hospital.
Right.
We have the city manager. There could be exigent circumstances that pulls them away from this meeting right now.
Well, I know that-
Like if Terrence gets a call on his phone right now, he may need
Right.
to leave. But if he knew going into today that he could send a representative his place, that didn't count as an absence,
That's fair.
then I think that's fair.
Well, and I know, like, in Mark's case, because we always have that issue that he has a clock, you know, that he has to get out. But on the other hand, his opinions, you know, as you say, he's, of his position, his opinion, his value, even if he can't make it, he's at least sending that expertise along.
Yeah.
As opposed to just saying, hey, we're gonna take a random thought that we might get somebody as good. I know that's been the hesitation to break from what we've been doing, because when we had people with Mark and Jeff and, you know, that expertise, we didn't wanna lose it. You know, so I've been Larry say, hey, we need to draw a line in the sand and say you have to be here. But I think if we can say, hey, have somebody in your place, we won't have this issue going forward, then I think we'll be in a better position for that.
Okay.
I agree.
So the only thing we need to discuss is, do we want to have the July meeting or not? Because I know going forward with the policies that we're going to put forth the council, we're going to have a dark meeting each July coming up. But do we want to have the meeting next month or no?
Be around.
We waive that July meeting. We do that on a permanent basis.
So we'll go dark starting now.
So
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I think a ground rule is when the draft agenda goes out, that's the perfect time to respond back on whether you're gonna be able to make that meeting.
I think you're right.
That's the perfect time, because it's a good reminder, it's in your inbox, and
Plenty enough time.
She's gonna have to come with me, so I'll ask her if she's okay with it.
Shall we take notes?
it's like,
Yeah,
it's
she's
just-
good with it.
Okay. So still under 2F, any other conversations about duties, responsibility, organization, structure? That was a good conversation. That brings us some clarity. So moving on to 2G, anything that we want to notate there as bringing back to our meeting in August to kind of start really the second year? And are these in prioritized order at any point, Kyle? No, they're just listed.
kind of
Okay.
what came up during discussions. So Yeah, we can eliminate that.
budget.
It is in the budget, you said?
Elmer kind of gave an update on Proterra interchange. We had this economic impact analysis that we were gonna present. Todd, do you still want to do that, or?
Yeah, we'll
That was that-
provide an update, because we've had one kickoff meeting, there's another meeting on the 21st, next week, community meeting on the general plan.
Yeah, so we can bring back an update on the general plan, maybe at the August meeting.
I think so.
The two that really interest me when I first looked at this list are number 6 and 7.
6, I'm not quite sure what's gonna happen with that, because that was Party Home saying that they would front some money for a contest on
But
facades.
I don't think he's out on that. I mean, I know.
Yeah, maybe they'll still do it. Yeah, you're right.
Party was interested in doing that because it benefited.
Whether
Party,
they
you
sit
know,
on the
better
committee or
downtown,
not.
makes it easier for him to sell homes, so.
Yeah, you're probably right. So we could probably still move forward on something.
So I think as we get to having that downtown development stuff, I think if we reapproach Party and say, hey, are you still in on this? Well, I would be shocked for him that he would say.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Do you have in this meeting, let's say 6 o'clock, hard stop? You want to, I mean, we've made some progress on RFPs and stuff for the downtown ideas, right? Is that the same kind of thing we're talking about here?
Overall, kind of incentive package.
Jeff had mentioned that Party Homes would be very interested in running some form of a campaign or something to throw money into helping a business either move or start up in the downtown area that would be an anchor, of a destination type business. And he mentioned something like a Carl Strauss brewing where it's like a tap house, restaurant, something that, but anything that, you know, the community could then we can come in and say, hey, this is what I would propose at this location, and that Party would have some significant dollars to get behind that to kind of help bring an anchor in, because once the anchor's there, certainly other people are gonna wanna follow, to help kind of kick off that redevelopment and anchor position. So that's what that was in discussion of, that, you know, his biggest concern over and over through the months has been the fact that we don't really have a downtown, an area that people go and congregate at. We, you know, it's even been kind of argued that there's multiple locations that fit the bill right now, and establishing one place and getting that going, was kind of what that was about, and why, you know, a contest awards, but he talked about doing something along those lines, so that would be, you know, kind of kick off as an anchor to that. So that's why I say I think Party would still be very interested in funding something if the right project was put in front of them.
The thing is, we're reviewing RFPs right now, because we went out to solicit, I think the mayor was referring to, is proposals for firms to look at.
Design. That's
We're calling the campus, the community campus here, and
Right.
we've got some ideas on how to reinvent the space that kind of begins to create that identity for
Right.
us. Plus to look at some streetscape concepts for Sixth Street and then Beaumont Avenue.
Right, so from the city, that would be mostly, as you say, infrastructure, streetscape, slogan, signage.
Creating the concept of what the place is, and then
Right.
from there, we begin to develop those concepts of, do we have partners like Party and others who can
So-
help us then implement, you know, that
Right, once that's in place, then this would be an opportunity to then kick off the first big business in the area that would then attract further business.
The reason that interests me is because I think it complements what Todd is talking about right there, as
Yeah.
well as it is probably one of the most popular pieces that come up in the general plan update discussions, is what are we gonna do, you know, do we want a downtown, how are we gonna do it?
Where is it?
Yeah, and so to me, that item, when I saw that, I thought, well, that's great, because that would get some interest in those other two pieces, the sort of the city campus as well as the general plan update process, and bringing downtown to Beaumont, so.
And there's starting to be some business concerns, you know, small business operations are having some concerns about parking, about pedestrian access down here. I mean, there's a lot of critical issues that are becoming more, I think, verbalized maybe than we've heard in the last at least couple of years. And so, I mean, there's really an interest, I think.
Yeah.
Commercial interest and some needs to start to figure some things out now. So it's kind of exciting. It really is good. Not good that we have the problems, but it's a good issue.
That shows activity, yeah.
And on 7, that was a work product that was going on between Bernie's agency as well as the school district, and they'd set something up. Bernie, do you want to talk about it, since I know that you had that one on here, and I know we weren't just limiting it to an apprenticeship program with IBW, but that was where we started the discussion on having that apprenticeship program be developed here. And if other unions or other trade workers wanted to do that, you would set a pretty good stage or create a program that would start it, and they could just follow cue with the school district or with the community college for their students.
boot camp?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where the number 7 came from, was to create a local apprenticeship program within the area. And you'd kind of started us down that path with working with Beaumont Unified for your apprenticeship program you already have.
Right.
Just to go through the boot camp to talk to them, or like,
Getting them geared up, just so they know what to expect.
so they know what an apprenticeship
When they're
program
about to
really is.
graduate, knowing, in case they don't know that they're gonna go into college, or if they're confused, you know, what we can do to help them be prepared to at least accept that type of alternative route for a career. And we had a boot camp set up. Unfortunately, it fell on, what day was it? It fell on senior picture day, I think it was. And so we initially had 90 students secured, and then buses was going to be an issue, getting the students bused over to our facility just so that they can see what they would kind of be going into as an apprenticeship. So, but what we do, different representatives like myself, we always try to go to the schools and make them aware. I know some high schools throughout the district or throughout the county of Riverside use the STEM Academy and some other trade tech stuff to get the students aware of that. And then what we do as representatives is try to get out there and just visit with the students and make them aware of what's available to them. So that's what we were trying to do with the boot camp. And any students that come to the boot camp, it doesn't have to be electrical related. It can be plumbers, pipe fitters, carpenters, laborers, operating engineers, and then at least they know the main thing is that they're going to have to need to make sure that they get their algebra under their belt before they graduate. That way, if that's the one thing they're looking forward to. Like, I like to tell the story about the kids that you see them show up to these boot camps, and you would assume that this one's going to be the trouble, you know? He has the look like he's not paying attention. He's flirting with the girls, or his mind is not where you want it to be as far as if you're going to be conducting a seminar or, you know, a class. And then you get that kid around the mechanical session, and he excels, and then you kind of see, it's cool to see those kids come back a few years later and then become a journeyman 6-7 years down the road with no student loans, and they're making $70,000 a year, and, you know, an active part of society.
And so that took a while to develop this year, but we have the connection.
We're good. I think me and Eben are going to work towards. Eben's one of Terrence's co-workers there at Beaumont Unified, right? At Beaumont High School. And we're looking forward to setting something up early on in the year when buses won't be an issue, and we can get all you guys out there.
When I saw that, it reminded me of two things. Number one, the chamber has a committee with the school district on business, and we were working on a career day. I was on that early on, and I had to step away from it. And that was talking about finding apprenticeships in local businesses. But after I've seen some of the entry-level positions the city is approving, I think it'd be a good idea to bring an apprenticeship program to the city, you know, where people can get, because I'm now recommending my kids, don't go into private industry, go into public sector, because, you know, the jobs that are there, what they're paying, and the benefits and all of that. But if a kid had an opportunity to say, yeah, I think I'd like to see what planning is about, you know, what is the planning department, what is, you know, different parts of the, you know, the business. I know where I work, during the summer, we have, 30 or 40 interns come in for the summer, and I thought something like that. I didn't know exactly, I like what you're talking about, Bernie, and I think you and I had talked about that at one time. You had brought that up to my meeting as well. But I saw the idea of the businesses as well as the city providing apprenticeship positions. So those two, I think, would be good future agenda items.
Yeah.
Take them away from this is a list of suggestions, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and bring them into agenda items.
So business apprenticeship as well as the city.
I think just a local apprenticeship program in general, we can talk about.
Okay.
Internship and apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Internship and apprenticeships. 'Cause I thought the same thing with the hospital. There's such a large medical field, and, I coach kids, and I can't, so many of them are saying that's their goal, and I coaching archery, I have a lot of very successful students that are in there that, are taking that path, that wanna go medical degrees and do that kind of stuff, and the more experience they can get to that, early on, the better. But there's, a lot of, Terrence is very aware, very talented kids in the area, and, that's we've talked about that SWOT analysis. One of my complaints is an opportunity for them to expand and explore the world and what might be out there for them to do something. So I think any of those, especially summer internships or apprenticeship programs in industry or city levels would be very good.
I don't know how much effect we could have as this committee, but I think the most important one is potential auto mall sites, developments like that. Only the reason I say that is because everybody I talk to, friends, family, community members, is that there's so much building, and with the new 800 houses going on, and there's still not enough to do in Beaumont. I don't know what we can do as a committee, but I think we should focus on what we can discuss as a committee to bring to council to hopefully help move those items along, because that's what I hear the most from people that I talk to, softball fields, everything else. Anywhere I'm at within this community, the people that live here, the complaint is that we have too many houses and not enough, Target or extracurricular activity, places to shop, places to eat. So, I don't know what we can do as a committee, but I think that should be something we should discuss more often than not and try to move towards.
In addition to that, I
Solutions
would
to
like,
that.
in addition to that, I would like to add that when I think of a mall, I think of part-time jobs for my college students, who many of them work at the Cabazon Mall. And what a nice opportunity for them to have something much closer than to drive to Cabazon. If they don't have a car, they can get a job over there. They can ride the bus for free.
So I think we have a pretty good roadmap, at least for the next meeting in August,
Yeah.
in terms of how we can move forward.
I think we're also going to reach out to the water district to see if they can do a presentation at the August meeting. So we wanted to have our city engineer and public works department come in and explain our side of the infrastructure. Since we don't control the water or the water meters in the area, we were going to hopefully reach out to the district and have one of their professionals come and discuss where they're at in the water process.
We talked about expanding that out to all the other utilities as well, because we need to hear from gas, we need to hear about electric, just kind of get an idea about, where are we with those capacities?
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly that. That's the one quantifiable thing I haven't seen through the SWOT analysis is what are the things that we can't meet? You guys know, I think that's on to you from the city's perspective, what things can we do, like, it just absolutely couldn't be here because we don't have the infrastructure for it. I think it would be good to know, as you say, if, you talk with the water, hey, we can offer a pipeline for certain industries, but if we don't have that, we need to know, like, hey, we can't even talk to them because it ain't gonna help, we don't have what's necessary for that. So if there's something that we can see, just kind of a general outline, like these are the things we're really well positioned infrastructure-wise to support, these are the things that we'd have to jump through a million hoops for. We talked about that with with the auto mall, the big problem with the auto mall is wherever you stick it, getting on and off the freeways, because that's one of our huge hurdles that we need to, that would be a large cost perspective for the city to put in place. So I mean, it would take a ton of planning, obviously, for that, as opposed to other things like downtown where it might just be upgrading, you know, facelifting buildings and you know, expanding existing business more than starting new industry. So if you have just something like that kind of prepared for August, I think it would give us some good talking points.
Yeah, and a mall doesn't have to be an enclosed building. Look at Victoria Gardens.
Yeah.
Such a nice area. And
Yeah, yeah, that's effectively their downtown. You know, they don't have a downtown per se, so they
Yeah.
have a mall area for it.
an open area.
You know, the beach communities are obviously all that way, but you know, their
Yes.
city hall area isn't their
It's an
downtown.
outdoors.
Their downtown is wrapped around.
That's right. Santa Monica is another one. Yeah. It's true.
So we need a pier.
Beaumont Beach.
Need some more water, just a little bit more water.
Mentone Beach,
A freeway will do it.
No, I
The
don't
Victoria
know.
Gardens has one.
Or build us a lake, and I can get you a pier.
It's the pier.
Just a pier over the desert, it works just fine.
Those are cheap. That's just wood.
You know, along with what Mike brought up, I don't know whether it was in council or whether I heard this directly, it might have been from Mr. Chambers or Mr. Turner. They were suggesting to me that the way economic development in cities are going or heading in the future is away from the goods and supplies and things that you would buy in a mall and towards more services because of the internet. Everything is now going away from people buying stuff at the store. And for example, I understand Target's not even opening any more stores because and Walmart is thinking about slowing down their development too because they're doing so much on the internet. And then cities really need to look at kinds of businesses that bring in services rather than goods and supplies and stuff like that.
That's correct. You need to have a destination center where you have something else that draws people in, whether that's a movie theater, a fitness gym, some sort of amphitheater, live venue, or something like that. Some destination, a row of bars like Redlands has. Some destination reason that you're going there that isn't going to pick up the stuff at Target. Because that's just not how developments are going to occur anymore. And if you don't have that type of destination center, you're really not going to get a large, meaningful commercial shopping center anymore. And thinking of a mall, if it doesn't have multiple destinations coupled with retail, it's not going to be viable and it's not going to develop.
One thing that's popping up in Redlands all over is these craft breweries.
yeah.
And they are.
The one in Banning, we just did a ribbon cutting.
Yeah, and I go up to each one of these guys and I give them my card and say, we don't have anything in Beaumont. Beaumont's got
Good job.
45,000 people and we don't have a craft
Well,
brewery.
you know, that's gonna be, you know, the reason Brew Rebellion is in Banning is because the city owned the building and they gave it to them for
Right.
pennies.
Right.
I mean,
Wow.
And they said, hey, you wanna rent this, we'll give you
Well,
whatever.
Ukaipa was
Do you know how
similar.
long the lease was?
Brew Capo.
No, I know, but they came from Ukaipa. because
Yeah,
that's
Ukaipa was a similar
Right, but they-
city.
but-
They didn't have a very good location.
But Banning turned out and said, we'll give you a, you know, whatever, just to throw numbers out, but a $10,000 a month lease for $1,000 a month.
Right.
It was literally like 5 cents on the dollar, 10 cents on the dollar to get them to move and to create the position. So, you know, I mean, that's the thing with the breweries, and that's exactly what exactly what he said, was more of kind of a brew pub where it's a restaurant
Right.
brewery, that's a location people will come and eat. The brewery can be attached, something along those lines. You know, yes, it can be very viable. And, you know, obviously food, we saw that was the biggest leakage of sales tax dollars is restaurants, or, you know, from Beaumont.
Any middle to fine dining restaurants, we don't have them.
It doesn't exist. And
We go to Redlands or the desert for that.
now, I know for a big piece of that, and I think that's part of the whole downtown beautification, and that's a big reason why is, you know, I mean, my wife's in the industry, well, I don't know of a building that exists right now that I would say, hey, I'd put one there and it would work. We don't have it. It either needs to be completely built, which is what's just starting to happen, but that puts us 2 years out before a building exists, or, you know, there has to be some facelifts done to that downtown area to get that, which is why Jeff put that out to say, hey, if we could have some form of an opportunity for somebody to get a large chunk of change, you know, to kind of rehab a building or do something. I agree, it would certainly work. There are plenty of them out there. There are plenty of small breweries, but I'll tell you, it's not even the small ones, because if you look at the larger brew companies, like Ballast Point has multiple locations throughout Southern California where they've done that. They've built a restaurant and done that, but and that's certainly an opportunity as well, to say, hey, if we want to do something along those lines, approach one of the larger Southern California, you know, Angel City, Ballast Point, somebody like that has these multiple locations, but one in our area, but we have to have, that's the infrastructure for it. We don't have a building for them. They have to either start it from scratch, which isn't their intention right now. But certainly, I think that's a place to look to go to. With good opportunity, as you say, creates you know, Redlands has a whole bunch of vacant buildings that people can step into. And
Like they're building them all within the warehouse district.
I've noticed in Southern California, every warehouse project has a brewery in it now.
Those business parks, all of them have one.
I've never been
Hangar.
to a business park.
You should always think if you have warehouses or a business park, there's going to be a brewery in there, so you can't be that mad about it.
Yeah, rituals and. I think part of one of the things the mayor didn't mention is when he goes in and he says, you know, if the microbreweries in Beaumont, they don't charge me.
No, but I go up to them and I say, hey, come on, let's go. We'll work a deal for you, and we don't
You have
have
no
to.
competitors. Corner of the market day one.
I went to Stone in Escondido. I went there, we go there once a year.
That's an impressive facility.
They only have one, maybe they want a second.
they went big in one location. It was small.
Very impressive.
Okay, so I think we've confirmed that our next meeting will be August 9th, 2017 at 4 p.m.
And it sounds like it's at Stone Brewery.
Yes, that will be here by then. So anything else for the good of the group before we move to adjournment?
Have a great summer.
Great summer, yes. Won't be meeting in July. Woo-hoo. So entertain a motion for adjournment?
We don't need to do that.
No?
Just adjourn it, sir.
Okay.
Get the gavel, get the gavel.
We are adjourning at 6:15 p.m. Okay. Yes, have a good evening.
Yep.